Hey everybody, so today we'll be learning the Kaitlyn song. So I'm going to break this down into two main parts. First we're going to buy all the chords to the main riff, and then we're going to figure out how to do the rhythm with the right hand. So you're finally going to get a rhythm pattern or rhythm technique for the right hand, so you can apply it to all the chords that you play. So essentially we'll be going over the two first verses with the chorus, because it's the same riff. So essentially what we'll be covering would be this. I hopped onto a stream and found some top-notch nerves and a pretty girl with makeup that can't do a single push-up. Oh, she's a tofu cooker, but a snake eater. Doesn't like whales much or rice pudding either. She claims that she is never sick and screams when she sees Ultralish. She screams, no, no. So that's what we'll be covering. So as I mentioned, we're going to be first covering the chords. So the first chord in this whole progression normally is a G. Now the song starts with a D and then a D7, but that's just an exception. Normally the riff starts itself on the G. So the G here, I do it a little bit differently than before. You know how to do G, but this one is just going to be the two first fingers. So you're going to have your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string, and then you're going to have your first finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. The reason why we don't need to put this last finger down here, or pinky, whichever one you use, or both sometimes, is because we're not actually going to go very down. This is a very low sounding song, as you can see. I'll just play it real quick. So it's pretty low in general as a riff, so that's why we're only going to need these two top chords. Actually, we don't even play this, but it's good to have it in mind while we're playing this, because technically I can still do the same chord with or without this. However, if we're ever starting to strum, we need to have this second finger here, so that if we strum, it still sounds like a G chord. If I took this out and then pinched this and then all of a sudden get this low, disgusting open A, so at least if we strum, we'll still have this. So it's good to, even though you don't pick all the strings that you fret with your fingers, at least you'd still have the shape, so you still know what chord it is. So we're still going to use these two fingers at the top. After that, the second chord, you probably know it as well, it's the E minor. So already here, we already figured out what our anchor finger is, so it would be the first finger, we leave that there, and then we just bring our our middle finger into the E minor shape. So we'd have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, and then we have there our E minor. From there we can go to a C. Already we know what the anchor finger is for the chord switching, so we're going to keep our middle finger there, and all we're going to do is put our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, and then we're going to take this finger and just put it up here to the 1st fret of the B string. So from here we have a C. Then here is where it gets a little bit complicated. Well, not complicated, but here's the new chord essentially that we're going to buy. So here we go into a B7. So this is going to be a pretty good shape to know, because this applies to everywhere, or in the neck, so like. It's very like, bluesy, jazzy sort of thing. So this shape in general is good to know. So essentially what this chord is a B7, so we're going to take our middle finger, we're going to put it on the 2nd fret of the A string, our first finger on the 1st fret of the D string, our ring finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and then we're going to have an open B here. So there's 4 notes total. So 1. So that's the B7 that we just bought. Then from here we go into the E minor again. However, we're not doing an E minor like this. We're going to do an E minor in the 2nd version for the chord transitioning. So we're going to use our 2 fingers in the middle of our hand to make the the B7. So it goes from here to here. So instead of going like this to this, because this is a lot of switching, all we gotta do is this, so much faster to just switch. So we have essentially our second finger on the second fret of the A string, and then our ring finger on the second fret of the D string. And we're going to go back to our E minor. From here, we're going to go and buy another chord. So here we're going to use our two middle, the fingers in the middle of our hand, to go get an A7. So remember B7? So that, you know, that texture, that quality, now we're going to make it into an A. So we're going to have the open A here that we're going to play, and then our ring finger is going to be on the second fret of the D string. We're going to have an open G, and then we're going to have a ring finger on the second fret of the B string. I'm going to play all those. Great. From there, our anchor note is going to be our sort of anchor note is going to be our ring finger that we will move up to 1. Like this. So we're like this, we take our ring finger, we move it up to 1, and then from here, we can play a D chord. So the D chord, essentially is going to be obviously the open D here, and then we have our first finger on the second fret of the G string, then we have our ring finger on the third fret of the B string, and then our middle finger on the second fret of the high E string. And then the last chord here is going to be a D7. So we have a total of 3 7 chords in this riff. So a D7 is really simple. Essentially, this finger here on this note has to go down 2 frets. So this one has to go here. So how do we do that? Well, this is one where actually you have to switch our whole hand. This is going to be something that you have to practice. So it goes from D to D7. So there's no anchor notes here at all. And there's no way to go around this. So the D7 is the, first of all, open D, just like normal regular D. And then you have your middle finger on the second fret of the G string, first finger on the first fret of the B string, and then your ring finger on the second fret of the high E string. So here we have all our chords. So if we recap, we have a G, right? Our G, and then we have our E minor, we have our C, and then we have our B7, then we have our E minor, and then we have our A7, then we have our D, then we have our D7, and then we're back to G. Right, so that's the chord part of it all. Now we're going to switch to this hand. So I'm just going to move the camera slightly closer to my right hand here. So the rhythmic part is going to be a consistent rhythm that we'll be using with our right hand. So in terms of how this pattern works, it's fairly simple, but it's going to be hard to a little bit get used to. So the pattern would be the top of the chord, let's say the G, will be just played with our thumb only. So just a thumb. So there's 4 steps in 4 times. So it's one. Let's say in one measure it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of pinching 4 times, we're going to do 4 different things. The first thing will be simply to play the top note of that chord with our thumb. The second part will be to play the body of the chord with these 3 fingers. So 3 other notes. So these 3 body notes will be right under the A string. So we're not playing the second string here. We're gonna play the G. We're gonna skip one string, and then we'll place our 3 fingers on the next 3. I hope you can see it properly. I think there's a bit of a shadow. So from there, you just pluck it up. So So it's step 1, thumb, step 2, body. Step 3, this is the tricky part. You normally have to mute. Or you can just skip it altogether, but that might get a little bit confusing. So the other way is that instead of slapping it like this, you can just mute it. So how to mute it? Essentially strings, if you just put your finger on it without touching anything, without pressing, I mean, it mutes all the strings, right? Because you're preventing the strings from vibrating. So if we take our G here, and then we take our first finger and we just sort of like flat it on it, like. It just cuts everything, right? So you can do that, or you can just practice. This sort of like goes together. So if you can just practice, like just putting your hand, just slapping the strings, so it doesn't make any noise. So that's the step 3. Step 4 is to have another thumb play the bass note again. So we're all together would make step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Step 4. Sorry. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So if we take that into consideration, this would sort of play out like. So this would be sort of the rhythm that we're going for. So it's thumb, body, stop, thumb. Now there's 2 exceptions to the bass note of the chorus during this whole riff. The first exception is this first one. So after the G chord, so we'd play the G chord, then we play the body, then we mute it, but then instead of playing that low G again, we're gonna play the low F. So it's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go into the normal E. So bass note, E, stop, E, and then the second exception is right after the C. So instead of going C, body, stop, C, and then B, body, stop, into the B again, we're gonna do like we did. So the last thumb of that C chord, instead of being the low C, it's going to be an open A. So open A, and then bass of the B, body, stop, bass of the B. So if we recap the 2 exceptions, it would be G, body, stop, F sharp, and then bass, body, stop, bass, bass, body, stop, A, bass, body, stop, bass, bass, body, stop, bass, bass, body, stop, bass, bass, body, stop, bass, bass, body, stop, bass. Oh, come on. So all together, that would be. Bit faster would be. So you know what I notice what I'm doing sometimes, that sometimes I'm not actually muting, I'm just sort of like strumming with my fingers here. So it's like half muting, half strumming, so it's like. I hopped onto a stream and found some top-notch nerves, and a pretty girl with a makeup that can't do a single push-up. Oh, she's a soulful cooker, but a snake eater. Doesn't like whales much or rice pudding either. She claims that she is never sick and screams when she sees all true as she screams. No, 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 my baby, it's no more. When the rain's no more, baby, it's no more. Tiny terrans. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the main riff of the Kaitlyn song. Hope that you learned some stuff here, or that you at least bought your chords and can be happy with that. So thanks very much. See ya.